team, hands down, truly has been. Why Caitlin Clark has yet to start a basketball game is beyond me. I can't even lie, dog. I don't know. And to me, Kara Lawson, I want to hear today. I need an answer today to why Caitlin Clark ain't starting.
Notice what just happened there. The coach was asked directly why Caitlin Clark didn't start the game, and Nate Tibbs completely dodged the question. Not a vague answer, not even an attempt at explanation, just moved right past it like it was never asked. That's not an accident. That's a deliberate choice to avoid addressing what's becoming the most controversial coaching decision in Team USA basketball.
For Coach, wanted to ask, what did you see from the lineup with Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, Ryan Howard, and Angel Reese, and how did that group impact the flow of the game?
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. You know, this is a group that hasn't been together very long. We've kind of mixed the matchups, mixed the rotations. We played our players a little bit longer stretches than what we had done in the first two games. And so I thought initially they got off to a good start.
Chelsea Gray gets asked about the lineup that included Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Ryan Howard, and Angel Reese. And listen to how Tibbs responds. He talks about chemistry, about mixing rotations, about playing guys longer stretches than the first two games. Everything except why Chelsea Gray has started all three games while Caitlin Clark has started 0. Because here's what the numbers actually show. Through the first two games against Senegal and Puerto Rico, Caitlin Clark combined for 25 points and 14 assists. She's been one of the most effective weapons Team USA has deployed. Not just good, one of the best. And yet, 3 games into this qualifying tournament, with only 2 games remaining, she hasn't seen a single starting assignment.
Then for Chelsea, how do you think the experience of playing in Miami at Unrivaled helped you sharpen your game entering into this Team USA run?
I think it's been cool to play against some of the players that I'm now teammates with. So I kind of got familiar with people's game that I don't normally get a chance to really see a lot of the time. So I think that's a pretty good aspect of it. And you know, it's physical with Unrivaled, and that's no different when you get into FIBA play. And we talk about this tournament; it's going to be physical. You're not going to get calls. That's just the nature of how we play, and we like it like that. So I think that's...
Now watch Chelsea Gray's answer about how Unrivaled prepared her for this tournament. She talks about physicality, about playing against teammates, about being in game shape, all valid points, but notice what's happening underneath this conversation. The narrative being constructed is that experience and veteran presence matter more than current production. And that might be a reasonable position if we were talking about similar output, but we're not. Caitlin Clark isn't just producing, she's producing at a level that's impacting games. 17 points and 12 assists in the most recent game against Japan. A double-double from someone coming off the bench. The coaching staff keeps saying they're rotating starters. That was the explanation before the tournament began. Different players would get opportunities to start different games, except that rotation has been entirely one-directional. Chelsea Gray has started every single game. The rotation they promised hasn't materialized for the player who's been their most dynamic offensive threat.
And then also just wanted to ask, well, 2 more. One, I mean, you obviously shared the floor with Angel. Paige Beckers has talked about admiring you growing up, and then now she's your teammate. Wanted to ask, what has it been like watching each of their developments up close?
Yeah, I was yelling at them the other day. I was calling them peanut butter and jelly because they were in the wrong place. But it's really cool, man. A respect for the game, and they just constantly they're constantly getting better, whether it's defensively, offensively, IQ wise. You know when they're missing, and that's the compliment to any player. You want them on the floor. They impact the game in different ways, but they're impactful.
Here's Chelsea talking about watching Angel Reese and Paige Buchers develop, calling them peanut butter and jelly, talking about their impact, their IQ, their constant improvement, and everything she's saying is true. But it also reveals something about how this team is being constructed. There's a hierarchy here that isn't based purely on performance in this tournament. Angel Reese is getting praised for offensive rebounding and boxing out. Paige Buchers is getting recognized for her ability to read defenses and pass. Both absolutely deserve that recognition. But Caitlin Clark is doing all of that while also being the primary facilitator in the offense when she's on the floor. She's not just contributing in one area, she's elevating multiple aspects of the game simultaneously, and yet the starting lineup remains unchanged. Game 1, Chelsea Gray starts. Game 2, Chelsea Gray starts. Game 3, Chelsea Gray starts. At what point does the rotation they promised actually rotate?
And then last question, speaking of impact, you talked about your legacy and you're emotional about it in a good way. As your career continues, you're sharing the floor with the next generation. How do you think about that legacy now?
Just sharing it, sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. Listen, everybody that wears this uniform is great in their own right. It's just sharing experiences, tidbits, different moments to make them better. It's all about impact. If I am able to impact and make them a percent better, then I've done my job. But also like enjoying the small moments and the moments that on the bus and the moments that we're competing and we're coming into the timeout. I think those are the moments that you miss later down the road. And so just telling them to embrace that now as you're younger, and then you look back on them like, okay, it's the building blocks for a legacy that you hope to create.
Now listen to this answer about legacy and impact. Chelsea talks about sharing knowledge, sharing experiences, making younger players a percent better, about enjoying small moments on the bus and in timeouts, building blocks for the legacy these younger players will create. It's a beautiful sentiment, genuinely, but it also perfectly encapsulates the tension at the heart of this controversy, because what Chelsea is describing is a mentorship role, a veteran presence guiding the next generation, and that's valuable, that matters. But is that what Team USA needs on the court right now, or is that what they need in practice and in the locker room? Because those are two different things. You can provide mentorship and veteran leadership without taking starting minutes from someone who's producing at a higher level in actual game situations. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Caitlin Clark can learn from Chelsea Gray's experience while also earning the starting spot through her performance. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is a coaching staff that appears to have made a decision about their rotation before the tournament started and is refusing to adjust that decision regardless of what's actually occurring in games.
Whenever you put this uniform on, you're playing for something bigger than yourself, and I just tell them to embrace that. With that comes great responsibility. You wear this with pride, but there's a standard when you wear this uniform. It's a winning standard. It's always been that way, and that's the mentality and the culture that people before me has built, and hopefully we sustain that. I tell them to have fun with it. It's exciting. You don't get this time back. You don't get the time back that you're playing with other people. So embracing that time and enjoying playing.
Chelsea gets asked about keeping the team motivated when they've already qualified for the World Cup while other teams are fighting for their tournament lives. And her answer is perfect. They're trying to build chemistry, establish habits, create a culture that carries forward, playing for something bigger than just this moment. But here's the disconnect. If you're genuinely trying to build chemistry and establish habits for future tournaments, wouldn't you want your most dynamic playmaker integrated into the starting unit? Wouldn't you want the player who's going to be carrying this program for the next decade getting first-team reps with the starting lineup? The Indiana Fever's Caitlin Clark isn't just some prospect who might be good someday. She's already proven she's one of the best players in this tournament. Right now, not in the future, today. And if Team USA is genuinely building toward the World Cup and future Olympics, the question becomes, what starting lineup are you actually preparing?
So in the second quarter, they played extremely well, cut the lead, and then to start the third, again, our starters did a heck of a job. And yeah, we had a good balance across the way, and everyone shared it, and that's what it's going to take.
Back to the actual game. The coach talks about playing well in the second quarter, cutting the lead, the starters doing a good job in the third, balance across the board, everyone sharing the ball. That's what it takes. Except when you look at who actually created that balance. Caitlin Clark's name keeps appearing in the box score. Her assists, her court vision, her ability to push tempo and create easy opportunities for teammates. The balance the coach is praising happened in large part because of what she did when she entered the game, and this is where the coaching decision becomes genuinely puzzling from a tactical standpoint. Nate Tibbs clearly values ball movement and sharing the basketball. He talks about it constantly, and Caitlin Clark is objectively one of the best passers in this entire tournament. Her 14 assists through 2 games aren't just a high number, they represent an ability to see the floor and create advantages that most players simply cannot replicate. So if your stated priority is ball movement and creating shots for teammates, and you have a player who excels at exactly that skill set, the logical move is to maximize her minutes and integrate her into your primary lineup. Unless there's some other factor driving the decision that has nothing to do with basketball.
Online here, Mike is the go-to guy for his game analyst, man. He be dropping jewels. He said, this game has been much more enjoyable today. I smiled once I realized Nate Tibbetts was the main coach today. I expected him to allow Caitlin Clark to push the tempo.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The analysis afterward points out that Nate Tibbetts ran a much more fluid offense when he was the primary coach during this game. The offense looked different, more dynamic, better spacing, and people noticed. The comment about wanting to see Caitlin Clark implemented into the starting lineup isn't coming from casual fans who don't understand basketball. It's coming from people who watched the game and saw what happened when she was on the floor versus when she wasn't. The eye test matches the statistics. Both are pointing in the same direction. Chelsea Gray starting 3 games in a row while Caitlin Clark has yet to start a single game isn't a rotation. That's a hierarchy, and hierarchies are fine when they're based on performance and production. But when the player coming off the bench is outproducing the starter in multiple statistical categories, you have to question what criteria are actually being used to make these decisions. Let's talk about what this actually means for Team USA moving forward, because this isn't just about one tournament or one coaching decision. This is about how the national team program evaluates talent and constructs rosters for major competitions. Caitlin Clark is 22 years old. She's going to be the face of USA basketball for potentially the next decade or more. The 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles are 4 years away. The 2032 Olympics after that. Multiple World Cups in between. This isn't a player who's going to contribute for one cycle and retire. This is a generational talent who will define American women's basketball for years to come. So when the coaching staff makes decisions about her role on this team, those decisions echo beyond this qualifying tournament. They establish patterns, they create expectations, they send messages about how the program values different types of contributions. And right now, the message being sent is confusing at best. On one hand, they talk about building for the future and developing chemistry with younger players. On the other hand, they're starting a veteran point guard in all 3 games while the younger, more productive point guard comes off the bench. Those two things don't align. If the priority is veteran leadership and experience, then be honest about that. Say explicitly that Chelsea Gray is starting because of her experience in international play, regardless of current production. Own that decision, but don't claim you're rotating starters when you're clearly not. Don't say you're building for the future while giving all the first team reps to players who won't be part of that future. The other element here is what this means for Caitlin Clark's development at the international level. FIBA basketball is different from the WNBA. Different rules, different officiating, different pace, different physicality. Players need time to adjust to those differences. They need reps in meaningful situations to develop comfort with how international games flow. By bringing Caitlin Clark off the bench in all 3 games, the coaching staff is limiting her exposure to those crucial learning experiences. She's getting minutes, yes, but she's not getting the experience of starting a game, setting an early tone, and playing through the full arc of international competition. Those are valuable reps that can't be replicated in practice. Chelsea Gray mentioned how Unrivaled prepared her for the physicality of FIBA play. That's absolutely true, but Caitlin Clark just completed a full WNBA season where she faced elite defensive pressure every single night. She's not unfamiliar with physical basketball. She's not some college player who needs to be protected from international competition. She's a professional who's already proven she can handle whatever defense gets thrown at her. The defensive argument doesn't hold up either. Yes, international basketball is physical. Yes, FIBA officiating allows more contact than the WNBA. But Caitlin Clark's defensive metrics in the WNBA were solid. Not elite, but solid. And more importantly, her offensive production is so significant that even average defense represents a massive net positive for the team. Basketball isn't played on one end of the floor. If you're creating 17 points and 12 assists, you're providing so much offensive value that your defense would have to be catastrophically bad to make you a net negative. And her defense isn't catastrophically bad, it's fine, which means the overall impact is overwhelmingly positive. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Is there a generational bias at play here? Are veteran players being given preferential treatment simply because they're veterans, regardless of what current performance indicates? Look at the roster construction. Chelsea Gray is 32 years old. She's had an incredible career, multiple championships, all-star appearances, one of the best point guards of her generation. Nobody is questioning her legacy or her ability, but we're not talking about legacy. We're talking about right now, in this tournament. Who gives Team USA the best chance to win and to prepare for future competitions? And if you're evaluating purely on current performance in this specific tournament, the answer is clear. Caitlin Clark has been more productive, higher scoring, more assists, better court vision, more dynamic in transition. Those aren't opinions, those are measurable facts. So either the coaching staff is prioritizing something other than current performance, or they made a decision before the tournament started and are refusing to adjust based on new information. Neither explanation is particularly satisfying. The frustrating part is that this doesn't have to be complicated. Team USA is destroying opponents in this qualifying tournament. They're winning by massive margins. This is the perfect opportunity to experiment with different lineups, to give younger players extended run with the starting unit, to build chemistry for future competitions where the margins will be much thinner. Instead, they're running the same starting 5 game after game while their most dynamic offensive player watches from the bench for the opening minutes. It's not just puzzling from a basketball standpoint, it's a missed opportunity from a program building standpoint. Nate Tibbs clearly has the ability to run an effective offense. People noticed the difference when he was the primary coach during the Japan game. The ball moved better, the spacing was cleaner, players looked more comfortable. That's not an accident, that's good coaching. But good coaching also means adjusting your rotation based on performance, not just sticking with predetermined roles because that's what you decided in training camp. 2 games remain in this qualifying tournament. Team USA has already secured their spot in the World Cup. These final 2 games are essentially exhibitions. Meaningful exhibitions because international competition always matters, but games where the pressure is off and experimentation is possible. If Caitlin Clark doesn't start one of these final 2 games, it's going to send a very clear message about how the national team program views her role moving forward. And that message will be heard not just by her, but by every young player watching who's trying to understand what it takes to earn a starting spot for Team USA. The answer shouldn't be wait your turn regardless of performance. The answer should be produce at an elite level and you'll be rewarded with opportunity, because that's how you build a culture of excellence. That's how you ensure the best players are on the floor in the biggest moments. Right now, one of the best players in this tournament is coming off the bench while a less productive player starts. That's not a rotation. That's not building for the future. That's just a coaching staff refusing to adjust their preconceived notions based on what's actually happening in games. And if that continues through these final 2 games, it's going to raise serious questions about how Team USA evaluates talent and constructs rosters for major competitions. So watch what happens in the next 2 games. Watch whether Caitlin Clark finally gets a starting assignment or whether Chelsea Gray continues to start regardless of comparative production. Because that decision will tell you everything you need to know about whether this coaching staff is willing to reward performance or whether they're committed to a hierarchy that exists independent of what happens on the court. And then ask yourself, is that how you want USA basketball making decisions when the stakes are higher and the margins are thinner? Because the World Cup is coming, the Olympics are coming, and the decisions being made right now in this qualifying tournament are establishing patterns that will carry forward into those bigger competitions. Make sure you're paying attention to what those patterns actually are. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Caitlin Clark should be starting for Team USA? Is there a legitimate basketball reason for keeping her on the bench, or is this just veteran preference overriding performance? Let me know where you stand, and if you want more WNBA analysis that actually examines what's happening on the court instead of just repeating official narratives, hit that subscribe button. More content coming soon.